Welcome to an off-season edition of Begley's Mailbag here on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY NBA insider, and we are taking questions from you guys about the Knicks and the NBA. We're going to start off here with Dylan Backer, who wants to know, what was your biggest takeaway from this season? To me, you look at the young players taking a step forward. I thought Quentin Grimes had a solid season. Manuel Quickly, really good season. Mitchell Robinson, very good season. So you look at those young players and taking that big leap. And to me, that's one of the big takeaways, because you're left with this question now in the offseason. Do you continue betting on internal development with these young players, or do you take a big swing? Now, if you go to take a big swing, I think the way that these young guys played only increases their value on the trade market. And I would put RJ Barrett in there as well. So to me, that's one big takeaway. And then just the idea that there was gradual improvement after a 10-13 start showed me that this locker room was together. It handled adversity well. And I don't know if that's fully credit to Jalen Brunson or credit to a lot of people around the organization. I would assume it's credit to a lot of people. But the idea that they didn't fold at 10-13, they stayed together, they dug out of that hole, and then they made a run that not many people saw coming and getting to the second round of the playoffs, 2 wins away from the conference finals. Got a question from Zach Lela. Zach wants to know, with all these big name coaches on the market, do you envision the Knicks possibly making a change? And I say no, because if you look at the context of what happened in Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Phoenix, those teams were built to make a run to the NBA Finals, to win a championship. And they fell short of those goals, each losing in the second round or earlier. So because they didn't reach those heightened expectations, that's why those coaches were fired. With Tom Thibodeau, he exceeded expectations, in my mind at least, with the Knicks this season. 47 regular season wins, getting to the second round of the playoffs. Obviously you can question his rotation decisions, his lineup decisions, and that's all fair game. But the bottom line, I don't think you can really question, because he, again, exceeded expectations for the Knicks. Whether they see Tom Thibodeau as the guy for the next 5 years to bring them to, championship contention, I don't know. Sometimes coaches, their voices get worn out after 3, 4, 5 years. But certainly for the here and now, Tom Thibodeau, I would think, is very safe and is not in danger of being let go. Got a question from Orange and Blue. Orange wants to know, do the coming changes in the cap make the Knicks more or less likely to make a high-profile move this offseason? I think it makes the Knicks more likely to make that big move this offseason, because ESPN's Bobby Marks told me that once you get into that new cap and those new rules, it's much more difficult to trade big salaries. It's more onerous for teams to take on big salaries. So that big salary trade that you're talking about, Orange, I think is more likely to happen this offseason before these cap changes take place. And if you want more on that, we have an article on SNY.TV with Bobby Marks' full thoughts and some other context about this Knicks offseason. But yeah, I think this summer is more likely to be when the Knicks make that big move because of the coming CBA. Got another question here from Kivi015. Akiva wants to know, do the Knicks see Jalen Brunson as a number one option after this playoff run, and that he just needs a more consistent number two? Or will they be looking for a number one option this summer? This, to me, comes down to semantics a little bit, because I hear what you're saying, but I think regardless of what happens, whether the Knicks bring in, a scorer that would be above Jalen Brunson, call it maybe a Zach LaVine or a Bradley Beal, it's still Jalen Brunson's team, and the Knicks are still building around Jalen Brunson, around his strengths and his weaknesses. And to me, even if you're bringing in, again, that scorer who you would say, all right, he's a more talented scorer than Jalen Brunson, like he had with Luka Doncic in Dallas. Here with the Knicks, he is at the center of everything, Jalen Brunson. So whether he's number one or number two as a scorer, it doesn't really matter. I think the Knicks go forward here regardless, building around Brunson, around his strengths and his weaknesses. And that's a pretty good place to be, because they know they have stability at the point guard position for at least the next 3 years. And that's something that you couldn't say about this franchise often at all over the last 3 decades or so. Got a query here from Costa47. Pedro wants to know, can the Knicks get Miles Turner and get that valuable needed spacing? I hear you on the spacing. I think Mitchell Robinson, obviously, we know he's not spacing the floor, but I think you have to weigh everything that Robinson does give you. I mean, the way that he defended for most of the regular season and that series against Cleveland was fantastic in my mind. I mean, he was probably the most valuable Knick in that Cleveland series. Offensive rebounding, attracting Cleveland bigs, having to box them out, defending the rim. So I don't think you can just throw out the idea that, hey, we need spacing and we need it from the 5 spot. So let's just get off of Mitchell Robinson. For me, Mitchell Robinson could be involved in a trade for a player that is, a clear-cut higher level than Mitch and whoever else you're putting in there. I don't think you're doing like a Mitchell Robinson for a Miles Turner. Maybe I'm wrong, because I do know that, some voices of influence within the Knicks are big fans of Miles Turner, but I just can't see them just getting off of Mitchell Robinson in that sense. If you're talking about Mitchell Robinson in a package for a Joel Embiid, that's a different story, because Embiid is at a higher level in my mind than Turner. But the Turner acquisition, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense based on the value that Mitchell Robinson brought to you for most of the regular season, most of the playoffs. Got a question here from B1 Alton 2. Alton wants to know, as a realist, what do you see the Knicks doing this offseason? He wants Julius going, and he would like to see a stretch 4 or Obi starting with more shooting, and the core staying intact, the shooting core. So I think that is a realistic kind of projection for the offseason. When you're talking about trading Randle, I've said it before, I'll keep saying it. That's a tough deal to make, because he gives you 25, 10, and 4 a night. And he won you a lot of games in the regular season. It was a big reason why you got to 47 wins. So to me, if you're trading Randle, you're doing it because you have a player of equal or higher skill that you feel fits better with Jalen Brunson and the group. And that's a fine needle to thread. So maybe that deal is out there, but I don't think you're just getting off of Julius Randle just to get off him. He does too much. He produces too much for this team for them to be in position to just dump his salary. I don't see that happening. Then you talk about Obi Toppin and sliding in at the power forward spot. Look, I don't think that, based on everything that's happened the past few years with Toppin since he's been drafted, I don't see that as a path right now in terms of what the coaches would be comfortable with. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't see Tom Thibodeau saying, all right, we're going to get rid of Julius. We're going to slide Obi Toppin in as our starting 4. I think a Randle deal would, again, be bringing in maybe a talented shooting guard or a sharp shooting 4 that's head and shoulders above Julius Randle, and it would be in a package including Randle. It's not just going to be the Knicks getting off of Randle to make room for Obi Toppin. That'll do it for this edition of the Mailbag, but please keep those questions coming, because we'll be back with you at some point later this offseason to wrap things up, depending on what the Knicks do. Is it a big trade? Do they stay the course with this group right now? We'll find out over the next few weeks.